The US women's national team are Olympic champions, so let's talk about it. Well, the US women's national team has claimed gold in Paris, defeating Brazil 1-0 in the final and marking their spot as the number one on the podium one more time. With this win, they become 5-time Olympic champions, where the last time they actually stood first on the podium being in 2012. After that, it was Germany, Canada, and now the US kind of reclaimed their spot, one would say, as the most successful women's football nation in the tournament. There's obviously a lot that has changed since 2012. I mean, you can say there's a lot that has changed since last summer with this national team, but Emma Hayes remains undefeated, managing the Americans. In 10 games, she was able to claim Olympic gold with this team. So let's talk a little bit about the final tournament and everything that we can take away from both Brazil and the US out of the Olympics. Going into Paris, there was a fair amount of questions around the US national team, and I think that was fair given the fact that we hadn't seen a ton of games with Emma Hayes managing the team, and the few games that we did see, you could tell that there was still a lot of building blocks that were happening. And I think, and after the send-off friendlies, the main questions were how goal shy is the US? And I think it's really ironic how the Olympics played out answering that question of actually, and I think it was quite ironic how these questions have been answered, because what we saw was Trinity Rodman, Sophia Smith, and Mal Swanson are absolutely a terrifying front line. And what I mean by terrifying is that every single team that faced the US in this Olympics could manage or defend any of the three players up top. Looking at the shot selection that these players took, they're not afraid to shoot, and I love that about them, because a lot of the times the momentum of the game wasn't necessarily going in their favor. Yet when they find themselves in a position to take a shot, an open wide shot, maybe not even an open wide shot, but a shot that would create a little bit of chaos and possibly a rebound opportunity in the box, they were there taking it. And so there was a sense of belief in themselves, but a confidence in the teammates that they were playing around. And I think, put the shooting aside, I think the creative input that they showed was really, really fun, and it shows, again, an installation of confidence that this front line has very much needed, and Emma Hayes has come in and completely given them that. I keep saying they're clutch because they absolutely are clutch. They have taken the most out of the small moments. And I think in a tournament like this, when there's fatigue, when there's a very congested schedule, when you're playing the level and the style of opponents that you're playing, it's going to be the moments that's able to get you over the line. And what Sophia Smith, Trinity Rodman, and Mal Swanson have shown us is they are able to capitalize on moments. It was Rodman in the quarters in extra time against Japan that got the US over the line. It was then Sophia Smith in the semis against Germany, also in extra time, to put them into the final. And it was Swanson in the final against the run of momentum of how the game was going and playing out to be able to win gold for the US. And so it's been Rodman, Smith, Swanson, Triple Espresso. They've been coined. Coin them what you want, but it's the three attackers that simply couldn't be stopped. They couldn't be retained, and they couldn't be held back because they were determined to find the net one way or another. If it was in the 50th minute, it was in the 10th minute, or if it was in the 115th minute. They found the net, they got the team across the line, and now they're celebrating all these rewards. And I actually love the fact that it was Swanson that won this game, because obviously she missed the World Cup. It was a devastating knee injury, and the way that it happened, the timing that it happened, it was a huge blow. And, you know, she's a little bit on her revenge arc, one would say. And I mean, it's just, I love when football writes storylines like this. But on top of what the US has done up top, I think we also need to give Alyssa Nair her flowers. Alyssa Nair has always been that silent brick wall, but she really has been revolutionized biologically, socially, scientifically after that Women's World Cup game against Sweden, because she's just been a brick. Like, you see these brick walls around me? She's made up of that. Final minute saves, off the foot, off the hand, off her fingertips, her reflexes. Alyssa Nair was there, and nobody could get past her. They faced Germany, who were statistically the best attacking team going into the knockout rounds. They faced Japan, who have a range of deadly weapons that they can play on up top. And they played Brazil, who also statistically going into the final had the most efficient counter-attacking football. And for Alyssa Nair to say that I completely kept everybody out and didn't concede a single goal in the knockout rounds for the first time ever in the Olympics, you gotta give her flowers, give her a clap, because, I mean, seriously, it's pretty freaking impressive. In front of her was a relatively solid back line. I think we did see them a little bit in trouble against Brazil, and rightfully so, because Brazil's attacking line was just so creative and fun to watch, and we'll talk about Brazil in a moment. But Naomi Girma, again, I mean, she, despite her shaky moments in the final, she is so consistently good, and her level of defending is just so high. I think one thing that I've mentioned in my previous videos about Naomi Girma, she is one of the best defenders in the game. But I also admire how disciplined she is. That game against Brazil got really, really physical at moments and at times, but never did you really see her commit a challenge or a foul or look to defend the ball in a very chaotic, irresponsible manner. She's so disciplined under moments of pressure. She's disciplined throughout the entire game. Naomi Girma, there's a reason she always gets the praise that she does, but I think now we're really giving her the praise that she deserves. And I think this is sometimes what Olympic football is about. The folks that maybe don't watch the NWSL so regularly for whatever reason that might be, now get to enjoy the likes of Naomi Girma. Now, I've praised the front line, I've praised the back line and the goalkeeper, and I think there was still a lot of questions in the midfield, and we didn't see a good showcasing of the midfield in any of the knockout rounds. The lack of substitutions, the partnerships that Emma Hayes really stuck with, I think the pivots that she was really relying on, it just didn't work. Lindsey Horan also, more often than not, was not on the same page as the rest of her midfielders, which just it was choppy midfield work. I think Lindsey Horan is a great midfielder. I just don't think she's had the best tournament, and I think both of these things can be true at the same time. So, but that's kind of been the story of Emma Hayes, is that sometimes her midfield is not performing, and sometimes they're outpossessed, outshot, outpressured, out everything, fatigued, certainly more tired than the opposition. Yet they're able to find a way, and they're able to capitalize on the moments. That's a little bit of the narrative of the US, and especially in the knockout rounds, is that they were maybe not the best team across the 90, 120 minutes, often when they did score, and I'm going to point back to that Brazil game. They were outpossessed, outshot. They won the game through the moment that it mattered, even though their midfield wasn't playing so great, even though the team as a whole unit wasn't playing so great. Emma Hayes' teams know how to win a game through a moment. I don't think the US completely got the game right against Brazil, but it also doesn't matter that I say this now because they won the game and they have a gold medal around their neck. Tournament football is all about moments because, knockout stages are you win, you lose, you move forward, or you go back home. And it's a matter of, can you capitalize on the moments that you get? And Emma Hayes' team did that. And so certainly there's a lot of things to work out for them in the midfield. There's still a lot of building blocks to complete doing, but it didn't matter if they weren't the best team across every single game. They leave as the champions, and that's probably all they care about because that was their goal, to leave with gold. Brazil, on the other hand, is a team that did not make the most out of their moments. At halftime, Brazil's expected goals was 1.9 compared to the US's 0.19. That tells you a story of the fact that Brazil came one too many times close to scoring and finding the net, but also it was Brazil's attacking football that was really threatening in that first half. We didn't see much of the US, and we didn't see a lot of looks from them either. Also at halftime, the US was running at a 55% accuracy, one of their lowest in any of the halves this Olympic football. And so the first half, Brazil moved the ball better. They were passing much better than 55%. They had more shots on target. They had more shots on goal, and they had the majority of the forward moving football. When you look at some of the heat maps of where the players were going, Brazil had all that as an edge over the US, but they didn't take their moments and they didn't make the most out of their chances, and they simply couldn't convert, which I thought was, again, kind of interesting, is that the game against Spain, they were so efficient and they're so effective. And again, arguably their 4 goals should have been like 6, maybe 5 at the 50-minute mark, but they couldn't find the same efficiency rate against the US. And also in the second half, I think the US did turn it up a notch, which just made it a little bit harder for Brazil to get back into the game. Gabby Portillo, Jennifer, the pace that they were playing with was so aggressive. Ludmilla, she was really having a lot of fun on that left flank, putting both Fox and Girma in not very comfortable positions, and they were struggling to keep her tame. Yasmin, I talked about her last video being in the right moment at the right time, and she was at the right moment at the right time a few times. She just wasn't able to get a good first touch on the ball a few times and be able to take a shot. But I think what this game showed us, and I think what the entire tournament has showed us, is that Brazil plays some really exciting attacking football. This is a side that looks completely different to the side that we saw at the World Cup last summer, and majority of these changes come from the front line. And I think that tells you to the level of forward depth that this Brazilian pool has. They're dealing with a few injuries, but they're also dealing with a few players that just aren't on form, that didn't make it into the squad. But then you have all these players that are on form and they are making it to the squad and are able to have their moments in a big tournament like this. I wanted to quickly just mention, though, that Ludmilla plays for the Chicago Red Stars, and so does Swanson, who scored the goal, and so does Alyssa Nair. So if you aren't catching many of the Chicago Red Star games, I think you should. I'm personally very, very excited to see Ludmilla and Swanson play together, because so if you don't catch any of the Chicago games, I think you should now. This is a good promotional reminder. Back to Brazil, I don't think many people expected them to podium at the Olympics or have an Olympics like this, and I think it's a beautiful time it comes at, because Marta has really been banging and talking about the next generation and how this next generation really needs to step it up. And I think this proved exactly why she has been so, on the hype train about the new generation that maybe we hadn't seen before. 9 out of the 18 players in the squad that was at the Olympics are aged 24 years old or younger. That's a pretty young squad. Arthur Elias is also a pretty young coach, and this was his first major tournament with the team, and a team that is going through, again, that transitional era in some ways, and they got silver. That's a fantastic achievement. And not to mention that the team is hosting a Women's World Cup in 2027. That's also very exciting, and this was the perfect kind of outcome. Obviously, the perfect outcome would have been gold, but for them to be able to beat the reigning world champions in the fashion that they did, to be able to take it to the final and bring the game to the US and end with silver, that's a really, really good achievement. And speaking of Marta, I mean, that's quite emotional to see her walking away from international football. I think many of us have only ever known the Brazilian national team with Marta in it. And even on her last day in for the national team, she set some mystery. She became the first non-American player to participate in 3 Olympics finals. All 3 of her Olympic finals have been against the US, and all 3 have been won by the US, 2004, 2008, and now in 2024. But to say that she was in a final 20 years ago it's just insane, and it talks to the longevity of Marta. She is coined timeless Marta in my head, because she really is timeless. And I think our generation specifically have grown watching this Brazilian team with Marta in it. Brazil lifted their women's soccer bans in 1981, and Marta was born in 1986. So she was only born 5 years after women's football was legal in Brazil. So she entered the national team in a realm, and she leaves it in a completely different realm. And she leaves it when the nation is hosting a Women's World Cup. I think that's I think that just tells you so much about Marta and the effect that she's had and the impact that she's had, not just on Brazilian football, but South American football, but just women's football in general. It's the likes of her and Megan Rapinoe and Christine Sinclair that now we're saying goodbye to, and it's quite sad. The fairy tale ending would have been that she did walk away from international football with a gold medal. It's almost like the moment. She should have had her moment. But I think she leaves very proud with a silver medal around her neck, brought up and fought by the youngsters and the young generation that she inspired and she brought up. That's exciting. That's poetic. Everybody loves Marta. I think, yeah, it's going to be really weird to see now a Brazilian, call-up squad with no Marta in it, but we're gonna get to still enjoy her in club football. Orlando Pride, that's where she's at. If you're also missing some of their games, they're having a terrific season, so I'm not sure why you would be missing some of their games. But the Olympics have wrapped up. The US are back as a force to deal with now, and it's very exciting for women's football. The Olympics have been very fun. It feels like the Olympics have been going on for probably 4 months, even though it's been 2.5 weeks. The Olympics in general is always really fun, aside from football, to be able to sit and watch sports all day long and also discover new sports has been so fascinating. I want to hear your thoughts on this game, on this final, on the US, on Brazil, on Marta, on the Olympics as a whole, the new Olympic sports you discovered. I want to hear it down below. As always, to stay updated and to continue enjoying the beautiful game, make sure you subscribe to me here on YouTube and follow me on Twitter. And I will see you later.